Welcome back to Fact or Fiction Foundry, the show that puts popular beliefs under the microscope. I'm your host, and this is True or Busted, where we take on the most persistent, the most debated, and sometimes the most bizarre claims out there. Today, we're tackling a giant leap for mankind. Or was it a giant hoax? We're asking the question, was the moon landing faked? For over 50 years, the official story has been that on July 20th, 1969, American astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to walk on the moon. An incredible achievement, a victory in the Cold War's space race, and a moment that united the world. But almost as soon as the lunar module touched down, a shadow of doubt began to grow. A persistent whisper that has since grown into a full-throated conspiracy theory that the entire Apollo program was an elaborate fake, a multi-billion-dollar movie production staged by the US government. So today, we're putting on our detective hats and sifting through the evidence. We'll examine the most common claims of the conspiracy theorists and see if they hold up to scrutiny. First up, the waving flag. Conspiracy theorists point to the American flag planted by the astronauts and say, look, it's waving in the wind. But there's no wind in the moon. And they're right about one thing, there is no atmosphere and therefore no wind on the moon. But the flag isn't waving, it was held out by a horizontal rod, and the waving is simply the ripples and creases from being unfolded after being packed for the journey. Any movement you can see is from the astronauts planting it in the lunar soil. So this claim, busted. Next, the missing stars. The argument goes that with no atmosphere to obscure the view, the sky in the moon photos should be filled with stars. In the pictures, it's just blackness. This one sounds convincing, but it's all about photography. The lunar surface was brightly lit by the sun and the astronauts' suits were a brilliant white. To get a good picture of the astronauts and the lunar landscape, the cameras had to be set to a fast shutter speed and a small aperture. The faint light of distant stars simply wasn't bright enough to be captured in the photos. It's the same reason you don't see stars in pictures taken on a sunny day here on Earth. So the missing stars? Busted. What about the inconsistent shadows? Skeptics point to photos where the astronauts' shadows seem to be cast in different directions, suggesting multiple light sources like in a film studio. But the lunar surface isn't a flat, even studio floor. It's a lumpy, bumpy landscape with craters and hills. These variations in the terrain can create what looks like inconsistent shadows. The primary light source was the sun, but light also reflected off the lunar surface and even the lunar module itself, which can create some subtle secondary shadows. So are the shadows proof of a hoax? Busted. But the biggest piece of evidence against a faked moon landing is the sheer scale of it all. The Apollo program involved over 400,000 people. To believe in a hoax, you'd have to believe that every single one of them has kept the secret for over half a century. And let's not forget the other side of the space race. The Soviet Union was monitoring the Apollo missions with their own technology. If the US had faked it, the Soviets would have been the first to cry foul. But they didn't. In fact, they congratulated the United States on their achievement. So after examining the evidence, what's the verdict on the claim that the moon landing was fake? Well, the conspiracy theories are fascinating, they fall apart under scientific scrutiny. The moon landing was and remains one of humanity's greatest achievements. That's all the time we have for this episode of True or Busted. Do you have any myths you want us to tackle? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.